You're listening to the ProgAxia podcast.
Hi everybody, it's Andy Phillips here and welcome to the ProgAxia podcast. And as you can see, I've got Naomi and John from the Wood Demons. Hi guys, how you doing?
Hi, hello, nice to see you.
It's brilliant. And the reason why you're on the show is because I saw you down at the Prog For Peart festival earlier on in the year. And the one thing that happened when we walked out from after watching you guys, I was with Paul Googe, who's my co-presenter on the podcast, the ProgAxia podcast, and my guitarist in my band. You know, we all went down to see the show, and when we walked out of that, we went, "That was bloody good. That was really, really good." Now, it may sound like I'm sounding surprised, but it's not that. It's just that when you see like band after band after band, sometimes it just all gets into a funk, you know, just like it's all the same sort of stuff. But you really stood out to us. And I think it was, again, Naomi, I think it's the violin that sort of does it. I'm a bit of a sucker for violin in music. I don't know why, but I really am a bit of a sucker for violin.
That's lovely to hear. That's lovely to hear. And I think that was actually our first gig, wasn't it? After
it was our first gig for about 18 months, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it was so lovely to be there. We had that had an amazing atmosphere there, and everyone was so warm and friendly, and it was just so great to be back at live music and playing.
It had an effect on us, though, being so, you know, that the warmth of the crowd, you know, it's just great. You know, we were really sort of pumped up as a result of that. You know, it's just brilliant.
Yeah, we're really on a high. And then it was also the first time that we'd released our album back in December 2020. And it was the first time we were able to sell the album live as well to people. So that was also so exciting for us. So it was great.
Yeah, it was. In fact, I talked to people afterwards after the show, and it was a standout band, you know, and that's quite impressive when you think about, you know, the quality of the bands that were there that day.
What I would say is the cohort of bands contemporary with us, that standard is fantastically high, you know.
Oh yeah.
You know, they're all sort of more or less different from each other, but you know, you've got, you know, bands like, for example, the Emerald Dawn, who we're big fans of. You know, to be on doing a gig with them, it's great, you know.
Yeah, but yeah, as I say, a standout band. Really loved it. So that's why I asked you on. We had a little chat afterwards, after the show, drinking beer out in the sunshine, which is really nice to be able to do that with people again. So I think the best place to start with this is just really the sort of how the band got together, because, you know, obviously there's going to be a story there. So how do you guys get together?
Right. It's a sort of decades-long network of friendships, really. I mean, it started with me and Rick many years ago, aged about 14 or 15, wandering around in a days of prog and space rock in our school days. You know, we liked bands like Floyd and Caravan and Genesis and King Crimson, and especially Gong. And we had a sort of parallel musical career for years and years, but this is the first time we've actually been in a band together. Simon, I sort of met in a day job long time ago, and we played in a covers band there, and we both realized we actually liked the sort of proggy, more interesting stuff. So when I was looking to sort a band out with Rick, and, you know, to just create an originals band, then I called on Simon. This takes us probably to about 10 years ago. After a succession of drummers, we got Ed, who's sort of a drum graduate, and he's seriously skillful guy, very good, brings a lot to the party. Rick knew Naomi from work again, sort of years ago.
Yeah, actually, my connection with the band is quite a different one, because I feel like, you know, the three main people got together and had a lot of the writing input to start with, and had some great tracks. But I was actually working at a company which was all to do with how musicians earn their royalties with Rick, and I was actually in another band playing violin. But that, you know, it was a really good friend, but we weren't sure where we were going with it, so stopped doing it. And Rick had seen me playing in that other band at a gig at where we worked in the company. He was like, "Oh, you know, I think maybe violin might be nice on a track with my group, and he kept coming up to me and going, "Oh, Naomi, you know, would you be interested?" And I was like, "Oh, maybe." And then we never got it. I think it took about a year, but I think it was in 2014. I finally went round and did a rehearsal with all of you guys, and he said, "Oh, would you play violin on?" I can't remember which track it was now. Was it Istanbul?
Istanbul, yeah.
Istanbul.
It was, yeah.
So it's like, oh, we think violin could be really good. And I had a great time. Got to drink lots of beer in rehearsal. That was good fun. And then somehow I from doing that one track, I kind of didn't leave. So
well, we all agreed we've got something rather sort of good happening there. You came into playing one track, you played on the other four on the EP as well, and it sort of snowballed from there, really. No, it's been good.
Because the violin sits so lovely in that sort of psychedelic but progressive sound that you got. I mean, you talked about a couple of influences. I'm going to talk a little bit about influences of all of you in a minute, but it just sort of fits in so nicely. It doesn't sound like you bunged something in. Everything just floats straight into it. It's beautiful sound. In fact, what I think I'll do is let's play a little bit of The Odd Particle, which is one of the tracks you played in the Prog For Peart show, which I took a little bit of footage of. So let's have a go and watch a little bit of that first. That was The Odd Particle from the Wood Demons. That was a track that I took a little bit of video of from the Prog For Peart festival way back in the summer now, which seems like an eon ago. So you can see what the sort of music is, and with Naomi playing the violin over that as well, and just making it as I say, I'm a bit of a sucker for violin. I don't know why, because I'm a massive Gong fan. A massive Hawkwind fan, you know, that sort of vibe came over very, very strongly to me. But you got a very, very unique sort of sounds. What sort of, I mean, take Naomi first, right? What sort of influences do you have with not just progressive rock, but just violin playing in general?
Yeah, well, I mean, actually, for me, prog was the new thing. So in terms of my influences, I grew up playing classical violin, so I learned classical music, violin, did GCSE music, and I was playing in quartets, orchestras, that kind of thing. And it was only when I went to university I got the idea, oh, it'd be interesting to play in a band, and I met up with a friend, and we were doing kind of more trip hop, almost going towards Portishead and Massive Attack, and I've always loved that kind of stuff for years. But I'm a huge fan of film music, television music, and a lot of different genres, everything from metal right through to electro pop that's popular now. So what really fascinated me was just bringing what I liked to do or doodle with on the violin, just in general. And I picked up a way of playing with a real violin. I like using a real violin to get the proper sound of the violin coming out with a pickup. And then I bought an RV3 pedal, a Boss pedal, probably 15, possibly even 20 years ago now. And I loved the way you could add delay and reverb in a combination, and it just created a sound that I've been using on the violin ever since, and just adds this brilliant ambient overfeel that I noticed with the prog working with the Wood Demons. It just added that like top layer that you could have over everything else. You can have so much guitar and keyboard, but it still cuts through in a beautiful way. And yeah, so it's interesting that my influences aren't so much from listening to all the prog music, though I do listen to some of it now with everyone telling me about it, but it's from all the film music I listen to, and my other influences from the 90s and 2000s. So yeah.
What about yourself, John?
Well, it started in the 70s with the sort of, I suppose, the mind-blowing moments, really, the very early Pink Floyd stuff, because they sort of, without the Floyd, none of this would be happening, basically. I don't think that's too sweeping a statement. It kind of snowballed from there. As I said, the Canterbury bands for me, especially Gong, Caravan, especially of them, and Soft Machine and Hatfield in the north. I've also got a very strong folky strand with things like Fairport Convention and stuff like that. I like electric folk. And other more recent bands, the Soft Boys. If ever there's a collection of underrated geniuses, that's them. Robin Hitchcock, brilliant. I could go on. Television from the post-punk era, you see, that's an extraordinary reinvention of a twin guitar band. I mean, you know, there are so many different things. I mean, more recently, I guess things like Porcupine Tree, but that's not that recent. That's 20 or 30 years ago now.
Yeah, when we call things recent, that is like 20 years ago. It's like I could never get used to the this new singer in Iron Maiden, you know.
Yeah, but what's really great is the combination of everyone involved in the band. So Rick and Simon also, you know, are in different directions in prog and other music as well. I mean, John, you probably know better than me. I mean,
I mean, Simon is strongly sort of into the symphonic thing, and particularly King Crimson and you know, then Porcupine Tree, and Genesis, and yes, he likes all the sort of those lot, plus loads of other things. His music tastes are quite wide as well. He's actually a trained opera singer as well, and he's into classical music and other things too. So everyone's got this sort of vast musical hinterland in this band, you know, behind what they overtly present.
Yeah. But yeah, the way I like to think of it is, although we kind of feel like we have a signature sound in the way we put everything together, each song goes off in a different direction, influenced by who might be the lead writer, and then how we bring all of our own influences into it. So some of them are perhaps much more in the folk direction, influenced by prog, but others might be much more, you know, aggressive in their style, or you know, it's quite cool to be able to add that and have that across an album.
Well, we don't have any rules in terms of style, basically. I mean, it's purely someone comes in with an idea and a more or less sort of a series of guidelines on how it might be executed, but then sort of everyone pitches in, you know, and it might stay more or less the same, or it might be transformed as a result of everyone's input. I mean, it's
and the odd parcel actually is an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think maybe was it you who came along with a riff or an idea first?
Well, I just came along with a riff, and everyone sort of filled in the top layers above it, and it kind of worked.
That one we really built together. So we had various jams over years, in fact, kind of going in slightly different directions, but knowing what we wanted to do with the tune. And then, as we headed towards when we were going to record it, we really came up with something that we were really proud of and put together, all of us. And that one's a really a joint piece.
No, it's great, because the Simon's got his little theme there, and you and Rick have got your theme there. It all just dovetails beautifully, and all we have to do is play this line over and over again. You know, it's a bit of a holiday for me, to be honest.
Right, because what I noticed about the album, and a lot of stuff you played on that day was from Angels of Peckham Rye, the album Angels of Peckham Rye, which I want to sort of go into a little bit in a second. But one thing that struck me from that, you know, very often you get bands that can play a certain type of track, and they tend to sort of do that again and again and again. And what I noticed about the album was that each track on this album has a different vibe, and it's because looking at the Odd Particle, you might think it's, you know, you're going to do like loads of floaty stuff, which I wouldn't particularly mind because I love that sort of stuff anyway. But that's not indicative of the album. You know, you got Big Game Fishing, which I think is a quirky, strange track, but some great guitar on there. You got Starstruck, which is heavy. Surprisingly heavy, you know, because when you first listen to it, you think, oh right, I sort of get where this band is, and then the next track comes, oh maybe I don't get where this band is. Maybe they're doing that sort of thing as well, and then the third track comes on, and you think, oh, that's different from everything else you've done. It all sounds like you. I mean, it's like you've got this sound which sort of envelops everything and wraps around everything, but the tracks are really, really different. And one of the tracks that I really loved on the album which sort of surprised me, was, and I've got to try and get this right, Into Minimal Beige Thing. Now, was that a working title? Was that a working
Minimal beige thing, yes.
Interminable.
Oh, Interminable, is it?
Yeah, Interminable Beige Thing. That was Rick's.
I've written it down wrong.
Rick's naming thing. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that one's Rick and me. I think a few years ago in some rehearsals, he's got a lovely little sequencer, little module that he can link up to his keyboards, and he started playing around with that, and as you do in rehearsals, jamming happens. And I just thought some of the ideas went really well with the violin kind of improvising as a start over the top, and we started to realize we enjoyed doing that and what we could turn into it. So we did one little one that I think John recorded by accident as we were just in rehearsal, that we put on Facebook, that we put some footage of some Italian hills as Rick was driving through them, and we kind of went off in a similar way with the violin doing cadenza passages, and but we loved it so much that we thought, we want to record one and put it as part of the album. So it was an interesting one for me, because although we had the overall structure of what we were doing and where it would go with Rick's effects and my sound, we took a take in the recording studio, which we just thought, that's it. But I had half improvised it. So then it was really hard to go, okay, now I'd like to play that live, but I've got to work out what I did in the first place in order to be able to create that. But there was something about in that moment in the studio where we recorded that, about 3 minutes, whatever it is. And it was just, that's perfect. That's Interminable Beige Thing. Let's go with that. We've got to put it down. And we've got so many lovely comments about it, and it goes off in its own direction as well, but it's that beautiful ambience that still links with what we do as a whole band that we love. Yeah.
I mean, to me, that was again, it's just like, you got great song after great song after great song, and then this, it almost like feels like just a bit of a breather before you get into the Angels of Peckham Rye and crank back up the volume and things like that. And I thought it was just a beautiful, beautiful track. I love it. So this album, the Angels of Peckham Rye, I mean, when what's the background to that? How did that sort of come about?
Do you mean the title itself?
Well, the title and sort of, just the getting together of that album. Well,
it's been incubating some of those songs probably for the last decade.
Right.
The strange thing about it, there are probably glaciers that move faster than us in terms of getting new material out.
Like to get things right.
We like to get things right, and give everyone a say. It's democratic, it's exhaustively detailed, it's all that. But it's an accumulation of stuff we've come up with the last few years. I wish I could say there was some concept of master plan, but I can't even.
No, I mean, I would say that it was like 2-3 years in the making. So although some of the songs have existed long before that, we kind of started going to recording studio, or knowing that we wanted to own them for a recording. I wanted to do a full album, because before that we'd just done an EP, really kind of 5 tracks. So we know we wanted to do that, and as we kind of went along, we just talked amongst the 5 of us about which ones do we think are really there and could work really nicely together as an album idea. And I think, as you were saying, with the idea that we go off in different directions with each of these tracks, we kind of liked the way that combination of songs came together, and each one had its own space in a way. And so it don't know, it was weird, because we were doing all that recording, then the pandemic happened, so then that stunted us potentially adding any more tracks, but then we felt like we had enough material and it was possible to finish the rest of the mixing and mastering essentially without us all being there. And it just came together quite nicely, and now it's been out, and the reaction we've got, we just know that it was just right. So even though we didn't have an overarching concept right at the beginning, I think it's ended up feeling like that.
No, it evolved, really, didn't it? I mean, that's what happened. But for whatever reason, we actually think we've got something quite special here. So.
And what about the actual title of it? Where does that come from?
The title and the song, it's from an event in William Blake's life, where he, at the age of 8, he wrote how he saw a vision of angels in a tree on Peckham Rye, which is a sort of nice patch of green stuff and woodland now in southeast London, rather. It's really a sort of using that as an image, as an image or a theme. It's a song about sort of loss and regret, really. I mean, you know, it's. I think that's as well as I can put it. Really, I mean.
But I mean,
it's a slightly down song with an upbeat ending.
Not upbeat ending. I mean, but it's such a beautiful name, and it's your song, John. So you know the title you came up to go along with the track. We just felt it was so strong after we talked about lots of other names that we also decided we wanted to use it as.
People always ask what it means, and I would attempt to explain it to them. You know, it's not like sort of Blake is common knowledge apart from the sort of English literature graduates these days anyway. So, you know, it's worth explaining.
That's what it's all about, though, isn't it? It's like, you know, these inspirations that come to you, and that imagery, you know, of angels in a tree, in a wooded area in South London. You know, just like, and William Blake as well. Just, you know, knowing those sort of things, that's where all this inspiration comes from, and just popping into your head.
An English visionary, yeah, indeed.
Fantastic. What about plans for the future? You got a new album coming out?
Well, yes. We're starting working on it in January. In fact, I mean, you know, at least that's the plan. Although at the moment, God only knows what's going to happen. But I mean, we're planning. We're down to go into the studio in the middle of January and get a couple more tracks down. So let's sort of go for that, hopefully, really.
Yeah. We've got a couple of tracks that are very, very close to being ready, and we were talking about even and playing around with even, you know, while we were recording the other album. So we're really excited to get those down. And then we've got some bigger ideas, and Rick's got a symphony essentially in the works, which might, you know, four movements, which would be really exciting. That we really want to be able to add to the album.
A lot of it, yeah.
So it might take us a little while before it comes out, and I think part of our plan is hopefully to be gigging through next year as well, but then the second album next, which would be cool.
Yeah, we're very looking to put on a gig in London probably in the spring, I think, because we haven't played in London for sort of nearly 2 years now. It must be 2 years, and I think it's time we did. Also looking for gigs and festivals anywhere I ever, basically. So. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's true to say that, you know, we spent a lot of time kind of honing where we've wanted to take songs and done a few gigs, but Prog For Peart and a few other things we've been doing very recently has launched us into a kind of bigger audience network and group of people. So, and we were almost surprised at how well we've been received. So now we've got even more hunger for what other things should we should be looking out for and you know, trying to get involved in and getting to share our music with more people, because it's obviously resonating with people. So yeah, we're excited to look at the opportunities.
Fantastic. Now the one thing I wanted to ask you about that is nothing to do with music.
Yeah.
I noticed when you was playing, Naomi, that you was having a little sip every so often from a hip flask. Firstly, tell us what that was.
I've got to think now. So, in my general life, I'm a bit of a whiskey fan geek. So I do love my single malt Scotch whiskey. I've probably got about 6 or 7 different whiskies at home at the minute. Trying to think back to Prog For Peart. I think
what would have been the tipple?
Yeah, the tipple would be. So I do like expensive ones. So it might have been. I'm just having a look at my collection down here. I think it could have been a Glenmurray. A Glenmurray, but a Tokai finish. So finished in Hungarian dessert wine. So quite a strong one, but yeah, really beautiful. But yeah, no, I find, and I have found for years, that when I play the violin, not too much whiskey, but a little bit of whiskey really helps my kind of smoothness of playing, and also when there are moments of improvisation, that it just, you know, I'm on the right path with it and not too nervous in front of an audience. So it's become a thing.
It's become a thing, because we had a little chat afterwards, and you were talking about, you know, you're part of a whiskey club.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'm a member of the Soho Whisky Club. I've been for about 6 or so years. I play my violin at Christmas parties and things like that from time to time. And I actually also have a whiskey blog on my own website. So I work in classical music and I manage composers. But on my website, because whiskey is such a big part of what I do, in a weird way, I've paired up whiskies that I like to drink and I've tried with pieces of classical music. So I suggest what you might be able to listen to while you're drinking a whiskey. But yeah, no, it's one of my favorite pastimes when I'm up playing in the Wood Demons.
Well, we'll put the link to that underneath the video as well.
Thank you. Yeah.
So people can have a look at that, because I do like my whiskey, but I wouldn't call myself a connoisseur. But Glenmorangie I love. I think it's a fantastic single malt. There's quite a few, but I'm not going to go into that because this is a serious music podcast.
Indeed.
So we can't talk about booze too much. But listen, guys, I think that's been fantastic. So new album in the kicking. Anything else? Any other gigs coming up?
Nothing right now. I'm working on that right now, basically. But I mean, I would imagine there'll be something March, April in London.
Yeah. And we're on the hunt looking for what things are coming up that will be suitable and stuff like that. But yeah, we do want to do more gigging in the next couple of years to go along.
Because I mean, it's difficult at the moment because of the COVID and
plan ahead, isn't it?
You can't plan ahead. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
And so anyway,
it's backlog.
Listen, guys, that has been fantastic. A bit of an insight. We've also seen a little bit of a clip of the band. I've also got some other stuff on the ProgAxia podcast channel, the YouTube channel, which don't forget to subscribe to, by the way. Thanks, guys. Been absolutely fantastic.
Thanks so much for having us. All right, have a great
problem. No problem. And we'll see everybody next time. See you later.
Yeah, thanks for joining us on the ProgAxia podcast. Don't forget to like this video and also to leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. It really does help us. We'll see you next time.